with so many financial exchanges made with plastic or online these days, it can look like magic. But if you want your children to be financially sound adults and develop healthy spending habits, you need to start talking to them about money now. So where do we start, Bruce? This seems like a very big task.
It's a huge task. You begin with poetry. So here's a poem that my daughter wrote. The online shopping spree, I feel so free. Clicking and clacking, there's so much lacking. For more money, I plead. Mic drop, I have done my job. I am amazing. I'm kidding. You do not start with poetry. You start with a realization or recognition that you need to do two things: teach skills and model values. The skills are simple, especially at a low age. Like, there's not a lot of them. Cash flow and savings. So cash flow is how do you earn minus how do you spend, how do you manage your expenses. Why? Because we want them to live within their means as adults. And savings is how do you put money away so that you can save for bigger goals. And again, this is to serve them as adults. It's those two things. As they become teens, you can start talking about debt and trading derivatives or whatever else you want. But when they're younger, cash flow and savings, that's it.
Okay, now what do you mean by modeling values, Bruce?
Every family has different values. Education, independence, self-reliance, risk-taking, it's very, very different. So one family's value might be education, and therefore they want their kids to focus on school. Another family might have a very strong value on self-reliance, so they want their kid to work. So you need to figure out what your values are as a family, because that's going to play out in how you teach them about money. The other thing that's very different across families is needs versus wants, right? And any kid worth their salt under the age of 15 would describe anything they would like to purchase as a need. I'm a TikToker. I got to have an iPhone 12. I just can't possibly work without that. So you have to work with them on, I don't know. How do we figure out what really is a need and what really is a want?
Okay, so how do we figure that out? Should we be writing lists here with them?
We have to integrate those lessons into everyday life and find these little teachable moments. So one thing is you're walking around a shopping street is to look at the number of stores that have closed and to think, I wonder what that means to the owner of that particular shop. That must have been really hard for them if they had to shut their business. Second place for lots of teachable moments is the grocery store. So Abby knows that we only buy Honey Bunches and Oats when they are on sale because they're $6.49 at full price. I'm not paying that.
How do we do allowance with the kids? How does that work?
I am a big fan of allowance. So it is a limited amount of money, preferably doled out every single week, and they get to decide where that goes. The amount needs to be age appropriate, needs to be consistent. I actually have a note in my calendar to pay it out every single Sunday. And the third thing is it needs to be non-judgmental. And this is so hard because they need to have some intention about what they're spending their money on. But when they say, I'm going to buy a unicorn that poops slime, that you know in your heart is going to get used precisely once for $75, you need to like, and not say anything and let them make that mistake.
Oh, no, really? I didn't think that's what you were going to say. Let them buy the unicorn with the pooping slime?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what if they want to spend it on candy?
100%. And then they don't have the money to do the other thing and they're super annoyed. And you're like, yeah, you can't be I told you so. You'd be like, yeah, like high empathy.
Okay. All right. I'm going to work on that. What are some resources out there for parents, Bruce?
I have 3 resources. The first is a book. It is called The Wisest Investment. The Wisest Investment, teaching your kids to be responsible, independent, and money smart for life. Robin Taub is the author, and it's so great. It's organized by age. The second is a website. It's called talkwithOurKidsAboutMoney.com, and it has resources for home and for school. There's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games and tools and links and apps and all that. And the third is a tool called giftingsense.org. And this is so cool. I've done it with a number of kids in Abby's school. You go through with a purchase that you would like to make, and you have to justify it. You put the price in and the tax and the shipping and how often will you use it. And it comes up with a does it make sense score, a DIMS score. And then the math all prints out in a PDF that you can take to your parents and say, listen, the DIMS score is 9. You should really allow me to buy this thing because it makes sense. Now, that only works if what you came up with actually does make sense.
Okay. Okay, now how do you overcome some of the pitfalls that you're going to face?
Two things. First is to remember that every kid is different, and you've got two kids. I mean, they're different. Some kids are savers, some kids are spenders, and you have to account for that. The second thing is gender. So it is so worrying to me what happens when women become adults. Their financial confidence is very low compared to men, and we need to address that when our young women are young women.
Thanks, Bruce. Really important tips there for all parents to pay attention to.